gonna be a rough one today.
All right? What's going on?
I'm exhausted. I'm just tired. The time change always throws me.
Oh,
It's
time
later
change.
than
But you can't go to bed because it's an hour?
Oh, I can go to bed anytime. Are you kidding? No, it's just for whatever. It throws me off. Never used to, but now it's. I get up early anyway. It doesn't matter.
Pretend it's the same time.
You know, I think it just affects me on a personal level now.
You take everything personal?
Well, no, not everything, but that, this, time change I do.
I was threatening to go buy one if they were having a show.
That's what I heard.
See, it's not just the physical aspect, it's
He
the
tells
emotional
everything he
impact
knows.
of knowing
He
that
tells. It goes
society
into ears and out the
has
mouth.
stolen an hour from me of precious sleep, and I'm very bitter about that.
I'll give it back in the phone.
Goes in the ear and then.
There you go.
See, but by then, I'm rested then.
Oh, really stubborn.
Uh,
That
See, now inevitably on the night when we gain an hour, I'm always like running an hour
Is he
behind
here
in things, so
today?
I stay up an extra hour
I don't
later
know what he's
because
doing.
I've forgotten to put together whatever. And it's the whole thing.
Just
I'm
out of
just
curiosity, so.
Bitter about losing an hour.
Just out of curiosity, so I look up the Bible verse. Which one are you gonna start with? You're gonna start with?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
It's an excellent
I just
question. But yeah, we're
Thank you.
going to be looking at the Samaritan woman at the well. But you know, Exodus is good. Exodus is great. You know, Romans is kind of Romans 5:1-8 is, you know, there's a lot of good stuff there. Therefore, since we've been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, that right there, we're going to spend probably an hour talking about. Through him we've also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Another one that you can just dive right into. Well, here's a great sermon. More than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame.
Is that Lutheran or what?
See, Paul was Lutheran. No, and you know, rejoicing in our sufferings. I always try to point out that, you know, this is not a rejoicing, like you're not excited about your sufferings. Like, it's not like it's some kind of masochistic, like, hey, I'm looking forward to suffering today, or, you know, I need to seek out my sufferings. First of all, if you think you need to seek out suffering, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
It'll find you eventually.
Yeah, it's
Let
gonna
it
come.
to
It's,
you.
in fact, if you feel like you're missing out on suffering right now, watch yourself, because it's gonna come and bite you hard. Hey, buddy, what's up? Oh, careful, buddy. Go that way. Go that way. Go that way. I will get you.
Scared that one away.
So anyway, yeah, suffering always finds you. Wow,
I just noticed.
that was poor timing. Suffering will always find you. Alex comes running in. See, now Jim would have appreciated that.
Yeah, he would.
Oh man, sometimes the illustrations just write themselves. That was terrible.
That was providential.
I like that spin. Providential, yes. But yeah, this isn't a suffering that is. There's not like a virtue in suffering. It's just that we rejoice in our sufferings, not because of them, but in them. You know, we're rejoicing while we suffer, but not because of the suffering, but because knowing that suffering produces endurance, and I can endure this. And why can you, or how can you endure? Good old Sunday school answer, Jesus, right? Endurance produces character, character shaped by cross. Character produces hope, hope that we have in Jesus. Hope does not put us to shame, Jesus. Because God's love, Jesus, has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us, sent by Jesus. Really, every Sunday school answer. you know, if you ever get a Sunday school quiz, just write down Jesus for every answer. It's probably right. For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly.
Which is all of us, actually.
Oh yeah. I
It's
mean,
every single one of us.
yep. Which I mean, and it's a fantastic phrase right there. Just while not we didn't get right with Christ, we didn't settle all of our accounts while we were still weak, which was the right time. Christ died for the ungodly, not Christ died for people who were like they were trying real hard, whatever. It's like, no, Christ died for us all. We are all part of that ungodly rabble. And then for one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one might dare even to die. But God shows his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I mean, it's just great stuff. I mean, this is a good passage. Like whenever I have like a sermon, I always just I'll pull one of these verses out and just pepper it in because it just fits in everywhere. Yeah. Any thoughts about Romans? I mean, I'm not going to do Romans 5 today, but if you want to talk about it, we can. Any thoughts or hitting you in any particular way?
I guess verse 8, but God shows his love for us,
Mm-hmm.
and that why we were still sinners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's
We
the
continually
whole.
sin all the time. It really never goes away.
Yeah.
So, he died, took our sins with us. Sin will be something until he comes back that it just, and it seems like the sins keep getting worse and worse and worse. You know what I mean? I mean, I know all sin is created equal. But it just seems like a lot of sin, even though it's created equal, as the world goes on, it gets worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
It's
I mean, that when you, it's whenever. I mean, every situation, era, time. I mean, I think we always kind of see the sin around us as, and then this is we always see it as like this is bad. I mean, it's always been bad.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm talking about the indoctrination, the devil getting more and more and more involved in, our children and our schools, and I don't know. It's just.
Oh, I mean,
I'm
scripturally,
seeing-
there's truth to that where, that what Jesus will say about as the end draws near, pictures we get in Revelation is that there is a general decline
Yes.
that over time. So we can say kind of in both ways. Sin is sin. It's been bad. It's always been bad. I mean, very first thing after the fall, was people are expelled from the garden. Is Adam and Eve, their first kids, and Cain murders. It's like that's.
But they really
We didn't start low. Like we didn't okay, we brought sin in, so there was a gradual ramping up of like, well, we started with, hey, give me that. And that was like, ah. So it was bad from the beginning, but
Yes, it was.
but we do, Jesus does talk about how things are going to get worse. You're going to hear more and more about these things happening. You're going to see more of it happening as the time draws near. So I mean, there is truth to that.
But it seems like it's more and more acceptable now. It's okay for this and it's okay for that, and it's, I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's people are accepting things that Jesus would,
Yeah.
never condone, and trying to make other people feel bad if they're like, no, I
Right.
don't agree with that,
Yeah.
And so there's like more and more pressure to be more like the world, I think, more than ever today.
Mm.
And, like my daughter, she was a strong Christian, she still is, but, she went to University of Michigan, and a lot of the professors were not. And they constantly drill these kids, and, it's to the point where if they even try to disagree or whatever, they flunk them, or they just make it pretty, you just shut up and put up until you get through their class, and, it's sad, but it's a reality.
Okay.
And, so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's being forced, it's more of a forced thing to,
Well, which is just what he's talking about there, is so whatever we're facing then, that endurance is what is produced in this. And so even the kind of, the whole thing where suffering will find you. So even if, as we are going, wherever we are in this, here's the cross, here's his return, wherever we are in that timeline there, there will always be suffering, and it'll always find you. It's always going to be there. So we rejoice in these sufferings, not because of what they are, but we rejoice while we're suffering, because suffering brings endurance. We endure suffering. I mean, this is really over and over again. This is what Jesus calls us to do. He doesn't call us to rise up and fight. He calls us to endure. And this is probably the most difficult, challenging thing, and sometimes annoying thing about what Jesus says.
well, on the other hand, devil's advocate, your daughter comes home from school and says, hey, Johnny decided to be a girl today, was in my locker room watching us all undress. Do we just endure that, or do we speak up, go to the school and say, hey, not comfortable with this?
No.
Because if we don't, it's only gonna get worse.
Oh, it's going to get worse no matter what.
So I disagree with you in the sense that
That's why we need Jesus.
we need Jesus, but as parents, we need to do something to protect our kids too. We need to at least speak up and say, hey, this isn't right. And, there's strength in numbers, and enough people do that. I don't know, that's just my opinion. But I really feel like if we don't protect our kids, who will?
There's
Then there's this thing called rape. So there's consequences to not speaking up for your child. So anyway, I guess I feel like, well, I'll just say I disagree with that.
Okay. All right. I mean, there's always a tension here with, what are we really seeking? And ultimately, I mean, the difficulty we have is what does it look like when the kingdom is prospering, and it is, here's the thing.
Look to Jesus.
If Jesus says, like, hey, we should expect things to get worse and worse and worse, okay, force us into this endurance thing. A lot of times our perception, though, is like, but we should be bringing more of, this was supposed to be a castle.
That is a what? Oh,
Castle.
It was a birthday cake.
What are you I'm really tired. I'm so very tired right now.
Draw dragon on that, so we'll know.
Oh God, no. We're not going there right now.
No, whatever.
Don't try.
Some more.
Don't make me draw a sheep or anything. Bringing his kingdom, and so like what kind of like social change and all. I mean, it gets into this a lot of like where does that come? And there's a lot of a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about across the Christian spectrum of like, well, what does this look like? Should we have bring forth a Christian sort of like hierarchy or Christian government, or should it be and I'm not even gonna. Believe me, I'm too tired to even wade into those waters today.
No, I
come on.
understand that, and I don't expect them to do that, but I
Satan,
expect
get
there to
thee
be some kind of safety net for our children when they go to school. I
Right,
see
right.
nothing wrong with that,
Well, and
because unfortunately, consequences happen if we make not so good decisions. So my thing is
Sure.
protecting the children, protecting these girls, because
there's
I'm not saying we should fight. I'm saying that we
Right.
should, maybe show up to school council meetings and say, hey, this
Well, yeah,
isn't right.
that's
I'm
It's
not
always
saying we
good
should-
faith to participate.
yeah.
That's what
It's
I mean.
always good.
But on the other hand, somebody gets raped, like, it's already happened.
A lot of things happen, Faith.
Okay, well, if it's your daughter that comes home and said, hey, Johnny raped me in the locker room today.
Does that happen to you?
No, but it's
But
going
it's
to
happened.
happen.
It has happened.
It has happened and it will happen.
Live from
Sure,
our
and
own way.
Well,
you
I
can't
understand
protect
that,
people from the world.
but we can't sit here and say, well, you know, Jesus would say, this is not acceptable. And just like he sends people, you know, to help with medications, you know, he doesn't tell us to just die. You know, if we get sick, we go to the doctor, right? So that's my point, is this is one more thing where as humans, he's giving us, you know, intelligence to help and do something to prevent something like that happening. That's what I'm saying.
That's
Okay,
good, but
I'm
that
not-
sounds very political. It's,
No,
it doesn't belong.
Christian had something. He was.
It does. This feels
How
like,
is it
like,
political?
There's social responsibility.
I
There's
was
civil
just-
responsibility.
I brought it as an
Everybody does
example.
their own. If I had a daughter in school, I would protect her.
Okay, but I'm just,
And I'm sure
I was
everybody
using that
here
as an
would.
example though, when he says, you know, yes, Jesus, and we should lean on him. I agree with that, okay, I don't disagree. But on the other hand, I also feel like, just like if you get sick, you know, you go to the doctor, whatever, doctor, you know. I guess I would look at this as a sickness. There's a problem here, it's a sickness, cause it's not, shouldn't happen. You know, yes, things happen, you're right, can't worry about the future, but I'm just saying that we should at least maybe try to help, you know.
I agree, everybody should do what they can when they can.
Right, that's what she's saying. Some of the stuff that they're pushing is not right, and we all know that, but we don't do anything about it.
Well, and that's sad because we should.
We should.
And a lot of this comes down to kind of what I was saying. Suffering will find you. You know, you can, you can do all that you can to try to prevent it and to stop and again, saying
Right.
there are certain lines that, of course, you know, that we should stand for and, you know, whatever. But I mean, ultimately, it's not going to seem, I love this word. We're not, you know, as Christians, we're not like, fatalists, where, you know, well, it's going to be like this, so what can you do? You know, you hunker down, you trust in Christ and say, what can you do? You can't change it because Christ said it's going to get worse. So you know what? I'm just going to stay back and, you know, hunker down, and whatever happens, happens, and I'm just going to trust in Christ and all that. I mean, he calls us to endure, yeah, to stand up for truth, absolutely. And that's what, I mean, we see that happen with the apostles. You know, they stood up for the gospel. They stood up for what is true and faced consequences for it. But the thing is that, you know, they don't, what you see throughout Acts and all that is when the apostles, the disciples, all these people, they make their stand fine, but they're not seeking sort of world change kind of thing. They're like, you know what, I'm standing for what is true. And the idea is that this witness is going to change. It's going to change people. It's going to change hearts. And so that's why, like, I don't get too far into a lot of kind of political action stuff, and I'm not saying, you know, whatever, but because I'm more worried about our witness, that we're individually standing for truth and the gospel, particularly, because that's really what's going to change people, you know. And this kind of gets us to like where we live in this downward kind of trajectory there, not despairing, realizing the reality of like, yeah, things are going to get worse. They are getting worse. We can see it. Jesus says they will be.
The more we need Jesus,
What's that?
the more we need Jesus.
Well, yeah, and really it
And
causes
that's the way
us
it's supposed
to flee all the more, and cling to Him, knowing that, hey, you know, there are a lot of things I can't do anything about, but for, you know, it's kind of like for me and my house, we will follow the Lord.
That's right.
I mean, essentially is what it comes down to. So like, that's where, you know, where I get to where I don't, I can say in two ways where I worry about what's going on in the world around us, but I don't worry about it. I worry about it, but I don't worry about it. Like, I worry about the world that like we're passing on to my kids, as Caitlin is doing something in college, presumably, as Christine is getting ready to go off to college, as the other two are, I worry about the world that they're going to be entering into, and have specific worries for whatever, but the reality that I face is like, well, I can't control how things are going to go in the flow of things in our country, in our world, whatever. But what I can control is teaching them, leading them in the faith, giving them the foundation to say, like, you know what? Because, I mean, honestly, we have no idea. Like, if we're here and we're already, like, freaking out and worried about everything happening here, which there's a lot to be freaking out and worried about. Don't hear me wrong there. Okay, we're here. Here's where we die. And then here's where our kids are going to be living. Like, we have no idea how bad that's going to be. I mean, if we confess this, then, in a macro sense, it's like, what are we worried about now? It's going to be so much worse for our kids and our grandkids and our great-great-grandkids and so on and so on. So how do we even, if we can't even wrap our heads around this, we can't even begin to wrap our heads around this. But what we can do is secure them in Christ, which is where they will be able to endure and survive and cope and thrive even, and to be a witness to all other people who are going through, I don't even know what I'm doing, going through all this. I'm fading fast here. We looked on the cusp of.
No, I was
Oh,
just
can I-
thinking about my witness, though, to kids, high school, middle school, college-age kids.
Right.
Is to notice them, regardless of where they are on the apparent scale of politics, ideas, gender identity, and just be there for them.
Right,
Because
yeah.
not make them an animal.
Yeah.
They are people.
Yeah, and I mean yes. Well, I don't want to start getting up on a soapbox.
Yeah.
Remind me of that in a second.
And
Right.
No, go
Christian
for it. I'm
was-
going somewhere else.
Oh, okay. No. I've been doing reading a lot about. There's a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth in our circles, honestly, in all Christian circles, about. It's fascinating because it's all this like boomers versus millennials versus Gen Z, which is fantastic. I love it.
Gen X
because-
is sitting this one out.
I know, I love it because my generation is like, I don't even know what you're all doing right now. We're like, just leave my name out of your mouth so I can just go play my video games and watch my old 80s, 90s TV shows and
MTV.
I'll be happy in my 90s nostalgia. But it's like this very, because we have very different, distinct approaches and thoughts and views between the boomers, the millennials, and the Gen Zs, and they're trying to figure out like, well, how do we talk to? And in the church, it's always the youth. It's always Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I guess. How do we talk to them? How do we relate to them? And the challenge is because we don't know how kids are. Yeah, you could say how they're being indoctrinated and all that. The lens is very weird because we're looking from the outside and trying to diagnose like, well, this is how it's happening. This is how they're internalizing it, whatever. And there seem to be a lot of broken pathways there, where. Well, I mean, the communication is horrible, and the way the observations are just not as well intentioned as Gen Z doesn't understand boomers or millennials. Boomers don't understand millennials. I mean, it's just, and so there's a lot of. It's interesting. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of output on this, and it's fascinating how nobody knows what the heck to do with any of it. It's pretty hilarious, actually, because there's a lot of experts out there, and they're like, I don't know. At the end of the day, they're just so confused.
First I'd like to say, like I've said before, I have friends that are transgender, I have friends that are gay. I don't judge anybody. I'm just saying that, you know, when I was a teenager, I thought my parents were square, you know, that, I mean, let's be honest. We all did at one point, you know. We're young, you know, we think we know everything, we don't. Till we get older and then we find out we didn't know everything. But anyway, the point of the matter is, my concern is safety, you know. And if somebody feels they wanna identify whatever they wanna, that's their business, not mine. I'm not gonna judge them. I just am concerned about safety. And sometimes I feel like that's not being taken in consideration, so, and so anyway, what about how maybe somebody would feel about someone of the opposite sex being in their private business, whether it's the restroom or the locker room? So anyway,
Right.
I guess what I'm doing is speaking out for those that are uncomfortable
Right,
with
and,
it.
and see, kind of what I'm getting at there is that because the approach to it is, like, honestly, a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha don't have an issue, per se, with that at all. There's no safety issue there. Because
they're young and they don't think about the consequences.
But regardless, I mean, this is what we're talking about here. So coming at it from saying, like, okay, this is what this is, and there's, you know, whatever. They're looking at it like, no, this is what it is. And I'm just underscoring how, you know, to talk about these things is talking past. And I mean, we can talk about responsibility for teaching and all that, but I mean, my brain isn't functioning fully right now.
How does God look at it?
How does God look at it?
Yeah, we can't even know.
World.
Cross.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
My brain needs a
Take
break.
us in
So
a different choppy water.
take it, man.
Interpretation of Exodus.
What's that?
So I'm just looking at the Exodus reading.
Okay, cool.
And this is something that's kind of always puzzled me. I just wanted to get general thoughts.
Okay.
I guess, which is, okay, so in this passage, Moses, people are complaining, and God tells him to take the staff and strike the rock, and water will come out.
Right.
Okay, and it does. Later, Moses does this again when God tells him to speak to the rock, and this is the thing that gets him
In trouble.
barred from the
Yes.
Promised Land.
Yes.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why, and what is the symbolism here? What is it? Why is it significant that he has to use a staff the first time? That it's a rock? That he shouldn't use a staff the second time?
Right. I think it's because yeah. So you have these two because this one is the early on instance
Mhm.
where the people are testing, quarreling, grumbling, testing, whatever, and everything's fine. So Lord says to Moses, "Take in your hand the staff, strike the Nile. You shall strike the rock, water will come out." So yeah, the second time when he does it, the later part of the Exodus, and you'd have to look this up just to verify, but I'm almost positive what happens there is he's not commanded to strike the rock.
He's commanded to talk to it.
He says to talk to the rock, and Moses is like, ah! And so what we get there is that, like, you didn't do what I told you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got
Which-
really overconfident.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is challenging for us because it seems so arbitrary and like, dude, Moses was the one who was like, he was the guy. I mean, he was leading them the whole way, and he was the one with his rabble. Shouldn't he get a break?
Is there something, so, okay, thinking through this kind of Christologically, there's something about like Jesus needing to be broken for our salvation. This is the first striking of the rock, right?
Oh,
the rock
okay,
is like
right,
broken,
Yeah.
right? Once that's been done, it doesn't need to be done again. Things should be done in love with the word rather than
Wow,
the
I had not.
staff or. This, I guess, is what I'm puzzling over. Like, there's something it feels to me like there's something quite deep here, and I can't get to it.
That's an interesting take. That might be stretching it a little bit. I mean, you could.
Sure.
I think you
That's
could
fine.
make
That's
an
a completely
interesting case for
valid
it. Like,
response.
so, like, I would definitely like explore that for a devotion,
Sure.
because like devotions, you can say whatever you want in devotion. You can, well, I mean, you can get very kind of symbolic and whatever. No, and I think even Luther would. I think when he refers back to this, he's pointing out more of just the. Well, in both scenarios, the early striking of the rock and then the latter one. The first one with the people are kind of the focus of the disobedience. The second one, I mean, the people are, but I mean, Moses then kind of joins them. Is just kind of the dangers of unbelief within believers. Like, I think Luther takes it more of just kind of a general, when believers who should know better don't listen and don't, because I mean, the fun thing is like, Paul later in 1 Corinthians 10, I just looked this up. 1 Corinthians 10:4 is where Paul is talking about, and the rock that followed him in the wilderness, that rock was Jesus.
Right.
So
yeah.
Paul kind of,
Well, and the water gushing out is reminiscent of him being stabbed. And the water
right,
gushing
the
out,
water,
right.
the lip, and even you could even, I would go with the gospel, the Samaritan woman, when we talked about living water,
Oh, right. Yeah.
that,
Numbers 20.
like, I wouldn't make it a sacramental, necessarily a baptismal connection, but more of when Jesus' side is pierced in the water and the blood comes out, because flowing from him is
Right.
springs of water. You could make a baptismal jump there. There are plenty of other places that you can go for baptism. So, but it is like even Paul will kind of look back to Christ was the rock, but I don't think in the sense of Christ is the rock that is struck and kind of that connection. More, Christ is the promise of God's provision, who followed them in the wilderness. Because the fun thing is, like back in Paul's time, Jesus' time, there was, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, a traditional understanding teaching, I forget where exactly it started from, that the rock at the beginning of the Exodus that he struck followed them. It was and it would either be regarded as a rock or a well, a
spring of.
spring of, the thing was called Miriam's well. It was attached to her, and I don't know why. That I don't know.
There's a Virgin Mary connection to be made.
No. But it followed them. And I mean, and I honestly don't, I don't know the teaching that well, but I don't think like the idea was they had the thought like, oh, this rock literally followed them. But I mean, it was kind of the provision of God followed them.
Right.
And I think it comes down to the fact that there's a definite article in both of those where Moses struck the rock, and then at the end he struck the rock. And so because those are specific rocks, and they both did the same thing, there's like a connection between the two. It's an interesting connection.
In the Lutheran Study Bible, only it says Moses had clay feet. His endurance and patience
He had
were
what?
exhausted. He had clay feet.
Clay feet.
Mm-hmm. His endurance and patience were exhausted.
Oh,
He
okay.
felt he had to assert himself against the rebels, or at least take some credit for the miraculous supply of water. Twice did not believe. Instead of letting the word of the Lord reveal its power, verse 8, Moses sought to make his contribution to the miracle by striking the rock twice. Thereby he failed to sanctify God before the eyes of the people. You shall not bring. The Lord was forgiving toward Moses, but Moses' actions had consequences. Moses could not exalt himself before God.
Yeah. So that would be,
I don't know if that helps or not, but
yeah,
I
that's
just thought
that's the heart of why then Moses is like, oh nope, you're out. Sorry, you can't see the promised land. And I think, like I said, I think it strikes people as like harsh, overly harsh. But I mean, the coda at the end of that is he's on the Mount of Transfiguration. Like he actually sees the promised land. It's just not in his life.
Right.
But he sees it and he's there. So, it's not like God was forsaking Moses or saying, "Oh, sorry, Moses, you made it this far, but now you're out." It's like, no, but there was a consequence for that.
Didn't he come back? I'm still kind of new because I just got baptized last month, so this might be a really silly question.
You're all good.
But didn't he come back and he was shown to the disciples with Elijah though?
Transfiguration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how does that happen?
How does that happen?
Yeah, if he didn't get to see the promised land, but he still gets to come in for pop-up visits. And, like.
Well, yeah, you get the day pass.
He got the day pass. Yeah.
You got the eternity pass.
Yeah.
Oh,
He can't go to the promised land, but he's still respected enough to be able to be shown to other people. It's just
Yeah. See now,
We needed that.
Yes.
because Moses, and I mean, it's even more because you get Moses and Elijah on the mountain, which, and the easy way to go with that is like, oh, see, it's the Torah and the prophets. It's Moses, and you got the Elijah represents the prophets, so you got you get a very kind of symbolic kind of representation, which okay, that's fair, but I mean, it's also literally Moses and Elijah, which. Notably, the two people Moses, nobody knows where he was buried, and Elijah was taken up. So the two people whose resting places are, like, up in the air. Well,
Oh.
so
Tired.
Not visible to humankind.
there you go. Thank you. Where is it going with that? But I think, it's. See, I don't look at the Moses thing, and maybe it's being a pastor. Like, why does Moses not get why is he refused from coming to the promised land initially, but he gets to see it later.
Yeah.
See, I would see that more in terms of like, hey, there's the leaders of God's people need to watch their stuff. Just you can be you can be doing all the right stuff and you slip up, and when you're a leader, it's not just a slip up. It's like serious
Oh yeah, because
consequences.
he kind of just tried to command God by
Right.
saying, "Look, you're going to do this thing for me right now."
Right, which
Like, that's-
especially at the end of
Yeah.
like 40 years, and like the dude brought them through, and it was a hard slog with the first batch who tested God all the time, with the second batch who didn't know, weren't there in Egypt, and so trying to bring them along. So I thought, I get the struggle, but it's like, but you still gotta represent. And so when Moses does that kind of taking it on himself, it's like God is putting him in his place, like,
But
dude.
interestingly, God's like gracious enough to actually provide still. Right? He still
Well,
provides the
yeah.
water.
And he continues to bring the people, but he's like,
Maybe because God already punished him and he couldn't go into the promised land, that was the consequence for that particular action.
Right.
But so now we're in a whole different thing with the transfiguration.
Well, it's the same
So,
as
I
if
mean-
when anybody dies and and they're waiting in heaven. Oh, absolutely. All the transgressions are gone. So
Correct.
so Moses on Mount Transfiguration is not like,
And maybe he repented of them too. I mean, I don't know.
well, he's forgiven.
Of
So
them.
yeah,
And so-
Moses is forgiven on the Mount Transfiguration,
Because we're
obviously.
forgiven, and so like the next day, if you repent, supposedly then God forgets it, it's totally forgotten, and then, you move on, or you're like a.
God moves on.
I know
We
that, but
rarely
I'm just
do.
saying, you're like, he moves on from it, it's done and over with, he's forgotten, he repented, and now it's like a new day, or a new, you're like a new, I don't know.
I would
He-
look at it more in terms of
mean-
God came and gave the promise, right? I'm bringing you to the land that I promised your forefathers. Cool. And I think a lot of it is like, he gave this promise to them, but Moses doesn't realize it. He gives a promise. So what does that mean of God and his promises? You could feasibly look at what happens with Moses and be like, oh, God either lied or, you know, well, yeah, I know. We wouldn't go there. But I mean, like, there are some people who might look at that and struggle, like, well, wait a second. If God is always true to his promises, you know, and he promised Moses, then how can, and again, God true to his promises, so how can you reconcile all that? And I would point to something like, well, we see how it happens on the Transfiguration. Is, you know, was there a consequence to Moses' action? Absolutely. Temporal consequence? Sure. He couldn't go in. But, you know, God's love is steadfast, you know, never ending. He doesn't hold, you know, that Moses always, he was still holding on to the promise that was given him, even if he was like, you know, doing his own thing a little bit. So yeah, the Mount Transfiguration, we see like, okay, so hey, see, God was true to his promise. Moses did get to see the promised land. And besides the fact, I mean, this glosses over the whole thing that the promised land, well, here's the thing. He's up on the mountain. Moses sees the promised land. Well, what is the promised land that Moses sees?
Jesus.
There you go. That's where, you know, good Lutheran answer there. Is it's not the land. It's not like, oh, see, here's Canaan. See, Moses, finally, you get to see Canaan. It's like, no, he sees Jesus. Jesus is the promised land. So, you know, that would be kind of the nice Christian kind of Lutheran fulfillment of that, where we say, yeah, okay, see, cool. I see, told you. It's always the answer.
So you could say that Moses' lack striking the rock the second time
Right.
was due to a lack of endurance.
Hey, there you go, Bram. Yes, I like that. Yes. Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
dude, I'm tired after like a week of doing stuff. So he was 40 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
I mean, he
I
that
understand
shall
it.
endure to the end shall be
He struck the
saved.
rock twice
What's
at
that?
one time.
He
correct?
that shall
Didn't
be
it say he struck it twice?
shall endure to the
The
end
second
shall
time
be
he struck it
saved.
twice.
I read that somewhere too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So part,
good
I
word.
think
That's a
part of
song
it,
too.
he just was so angry and so frustrated and like you said, tired. He's like, you know, like sometimes you just have had it and
Like
your
throwing
body's
down
like-
tablets of the law. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, I mean, you just, I'm not saying it's right, I'm saying it's human, you know.
Well,
Sometimes it just,
absolutely.
I have had it with you, you know, and I don't know, but.
No, absolutely. No, that's totally, because yeah, we have we have the framework of how we're supposed to live our lives. Love your neighbor, love your enemy. Don't seek any, don't return
Don't
evil
hit the
for
wrong
evil.
place.
Turn the other cheek. I mean, to follow the letter, like if you really want to follow the letter of Jesus, what he says, good luck, because you are going to be the most pacifist, humble, not care, lend without expecting return. Give away all your stuff. I mean, he says it and he means it. And the reality though is like, can we do it? No. Should we do it? Yeah. Are we going to fail? Sure, absolutely. But then that just brings us right back to, all right, forgiven to keep going, keep doing it. Where's your mom? Do the red letters.
She doesn't feel very good at it.
Or she has the blue letter Bible, I guess. So do the blue letters.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they made blue letter Bibles. So okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
We're at home.
Yeah. Hey, we tied all the strings together. That sort of makes sense. I love the castle.
I just got, it's totally off the thing, but you brought up Jesus. I was at a friend's yesterday, he's Hindu, I might have told this story before. But what's interesting is he's got his prayer room, but he's got a big picture of Jesus on there now. And I talked about that a while ago. But he just said he believes that God has to show love, and none of his gods are love, like he thinks Jesus
Oh, this is one who was not a Christian.
Yeah, he's not a Christian, but
Okay.
he's the one that, before he said something about, Jesus, the true God should be love, and that's why he doesn't like Allah.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I
gotcha.
told him
Right.
the two great commands, but yesterday he still has them up, and he just said, none of the Hindu gods are love, like Jesus is. So he has Jesus up there because none of them are love.
Oh,
He's slowly getting there.
Well, I've been working on it.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been
That's
working on it.
good.
So-
I was with him the
That's
first
good.
time he ever
Just
ate
plant
beef.
a little seed.
Yeah. He's
One of the
making
things that
steps.
I don't
It's a
point
good
out
start.
in the message today is So the sermon's going to be about the woman, the Samaritan woman, and let me know what you think, because I do a narrative retell. I don't usually do narrative retells because, but I think this one's okay. But what's interesting is if you look at the text, she meets she meets Jesus at the well, right? Look at verse 9. How does she refer to him?
She refers to him as a Jew.
Yes. So verse 9. She engages Jesus. So she's coming to get water, right?
Right.
She wanted to get water. And she said, oh, how is it you, a Jew? Okay. Jesus starts talking. If you knew the gift of God, blah, blah, blah. All right. Verse 11. How does she address him?
Sir.
Sir. All right. We're getting a little bit, okay. He's not just a Jew. He's sir. A little bit of respect, right? Now, verse 19, after he says, go call your husband, have him come, he says, you're right, you have no husband. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you have is now not your husband. How does she refer to him?
Prophet. Sir.
He is sir, but also a prophet. Ah, getting higher. And then finally, verse 29. Come see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ? So, the baby steps. How, and obviously, I mean, you're talking about more of a longer journey, but the pattern here is like, oh, okay, somebody is like, oh, who's a dude at a well? And it starts off like, okay, but as the conversation continues, as they listen, as they receive, as they walk with Christ, you get that progression of like, yeah, Jew, sir, prophet, Christ, Messiah. So yeah, it's a fun. We kind of get this with the man who was made blind but made to see. But this one, I like this one better because I just do. Well, that was it. Woo! All right. I'm gonna get some 5-hour energy and do this.
Well, we should have got